Governments just rewrote the AI playbook, and if you build, buy, or rely on AI, this changes everything right now. Last decade's motto was move fast and break things. Today, regulators say, move smart and prove things. This shift turns engineering debates into legal deadlines. If your product touches hiring, finance, health, or elections, you're suddenly in the crosshairs of safety rules, audits, and penalties. We'll map the players, the rules, and a practical plan you can start this quarter. But first, let's see why policy sprinted from theory to law. 3 things collided and accelerated policy. Generative AI went mainstream, high-stakes use cases scaled, and geopolitics got involved. Think chatbots that write job rejection letters, models that suggest medical doses, and nations racing for strategic advantage. Those realities turned abstract risks into boardroom emergencies, which leads to a blunt question. Can your team prove your models are safe? If not, regulators will ask and demand the evidence. Policy moved fast. In 18 months, we went from voluntary principles to binding rules and enforcement. That speed matters. It forces companies to trade promises for artifacts, documents, tests, and logs. Regulators now want reproducible evidence, not a CEO blog post. I'll show what those artifacts look like and how your team builds them without grinding development to a halt. But first, let's unpack the new risk-based approach. Risk-based rules replace one-size-fits-all law. Picture 3 buckets: banned practices, high-risk systems with strict controls, and limited-risk tools with lighter transparency demands. High-risk examples include employment screening, medical devices, and critical infrastructure control systems. Limited risk might include an internal autocomplete feature. This tiering changes product roadmaps. Some features need lawyers and red teams. Others need a label. Next, we'll follow an AI model through its lifecycle and see where rules attach. Trust us no longer suffices. Regulators demand artifacts, model and system cards, red team reports, safety test results, audit logs, and impact assessments. Imagine handing an inspector a binder showing every training source, evaluation script, and incident log. That binder reduces uncertainty and speeds approvals. Building that evidence is practical, not mystical, but it requires discipline and tool chains. Next, I'll cover how transparency and provenance are reshaping content and elections. Content provenance is becoming mandatory. Watermarks, metadata, and provenance standards help users verify whether a video or image is AI-generated. That matters most in elections and newsrooms. The technology uses cryptographic stamps and edit histories like a digital chain of custody. Platforms and publishers will need to bake this into creative workflows, but provenance creates operational challenges for agencies and creators alike, and enforcement is the next pressure point. Enforcement is getting real. Expect fines, reporting thresholds for training large models, new safety institutes, and sharper consumer protection actions. Agencies like the FTC, sector regulators, and new EU offices will pursue non-compliance. For companies, that means audit readiness and incident reporting protocols. Enforcement turns hypothetical risks into balanced sheet exposure. Next, the political and commercial tensions regulators are wrestling with, the real trade-offs behind the rules. First tension: innovation versus regulation. Overregulate and startups suffocate. Underregulate and harms proliferate. Regulators aim for a middle path, but the balance shifts by country and sector. Product teams must design minimum viable governance that protects users without stalling features. This balancing act plays out at procurement meetings and board reviews, and it leads into fragmentation versus harmonization across jurisdictions. Fragmentation versus harmonization matters for global products. If the EU, US, and China set different rules, compliance becomes a maze. Large firms can build compliance teams. Smaller players cannot. That dynamic risks entrenching giants. The good news: standards bodies are building crosswalks to reduce friction. But before we dive into standards, let's look at the open versus closed model debate and why it matters for liability. Open models accelerate research and democratize access. Closed models ease control and accountability. Regulators aren't picking absolute winners. They're exploring nuanced rules that reflect the risks. Expect requirements for disclosure, guardrails for distribution, and different obligations for model weights and APIs. Your product decisions on openness will shape compliance burden and market access. And that loops into privacy versus data hunger. Privacy collides with the data appetite of large models. Models crave diverse, high-quality datasets. Privacy law demands consent, minimization, and purpose limits. Techniques like synthetic data and federated learning help, but they don't remove the need for governance. Expect rules that constrain training data provenance and require stronger data contracts. This tension leads to a final policy knot: responsibility and liability when systems fail. Who pays when AI harms? Liability regimes diverge. The EU strengthens product liability rules. The US routes claims through existing consumer protection and sector laws. Globally, responsibility is splitting across the supply chain. Developers disclose limits. Deployers assess risk. Integrators can't hide provenance. Contracts and documentation determine exposure. If you want to reduce legal risk, you must design contractual and operational guardrails. Next, a global tour of how leading jurisdictions play the game. United States. The approach centers on standards and agency action. The 2023 executive order pushed agencies to set reporting rules and testing expectations. NIST published a flexible AI risk management framework that's influential across industries. Agencies like the FTC, FDA, and EEOC apply existing laws to AI use. The result: a sectoral patchwork that demands close agency monitoring. Up next, the EU's comprehensive law and its market-shaping power. European Union, first mover on a comprehensive AI law. The EU AI Act uses risk tiers, bans certain practices, and imposes strict rules on high-risk systems and some general-purpose models. It creates a new AI office for enforcement. Because Europe controls market access, its rules export globally. Companies selling into the EU will face early obligations. Next, we'll look at the UK's pro-innovation safety science focus and its role in frontier model governance. United Kingdom, a pro-innovation stance that centralizes safety science. The UK hosts safety summits and funds evaluation research. Instead of a single sweeping law, it leverages existing regulators and promotes standards and testing. The aim is to be the world's hub for AI safety science. Think Geneva for model evaluation. That pragmatic approach leads to faster experimentation in sandboxes, but watch for evolving obligations. Next, China's rapid security-first implementation. China, rapid implementation with a security-first frame. Generative AI measures require content controls, provider accountability, and alignment with national goals. The approach emphasizes state oversight and fast rulemaking. Companies operating there must prioritize content moderation and data residency. That speed and focus contrasts with Western deliberation. Now let's shift to standards bodies, the hidden glue easing cross-border compliance. Standards and interoperability are the Rosetta Stone for compliance. NIST's AI RMF, ISO IEC 42001, and content provenance standards like C2PA create common languages. Adopting these standards simplifies audits and translates evidence across jurisdictions. Think of them as shared blueprints that regulators and companies can inspect. Following standards reduces duplicate work and speeds market entry. Next, we'll dig into accountability and who actually bears the cost when AI causes harm. Accountability will be shared. Developers must disclose capabilities and limits. Deployers must assess risks and apply controls. Integrators must preserve provenance and avoid misrepresentation. Courts and agencies will look at documentation and contract clauses first. Practical steps, like clear system cards and strict vendor clauses, shift liability away from downstream surprises. Want a concrete playbook? I'll give you a 9-step, 90-day plan to start today. Day 1 to 30, inventory your AI. Catalog every in-house model, vendor tool, and API. Record data sources, hosting locations, and business criticality. This simple list exposes single points of failure and surprising dependencies. Teams often find forgotten models powering public workflows. With that inventory, you can classify risk. Next, I'll walk through classification, governance setup, and creating your first evidence artifacts. Days 31 to 60. Classify risk, stand up governance, and build an evidence trail. Flag high-risk uses like hiring, lending, and healthcare. Appoint an accountable owner and form a cross-functional review board. Create system cards and data sheets for significant systems, documenting training sources, tests, and limitations. This structure turns messy knowledge into auditable artifacts. Coming up, testing, vendor hardening, incident planning, and training your teams. Policy isn't the only lever. Talent, data, and compute determine competitive position. Countries that grow safety engineers and evaluators will move faster. High-quality, governed datasets are strategic assets. Compute supply chains, chips, and cloud are now geopolitical issues. Invest in people, data trusts, and resilient compute to turn compliance into advantage. Finally, let's look at elections, disinformation, public input, and the adaptive future of regulation. Disinformation and deepfakes pushed urgent rules around provenance and political ads. Expect labeling requirements, watermarking standards, and platform policies to fight deceptive content. Organizations should default to labeling synthetic media, store provenance metadata, and train comms teams for rapid response. These measures protect trust and reduce regulatory heat. But rules only stick with public legitimacy. So let's talk about how public input shapes durable policy. Public legitimacy matters. Governments that invite citizens and civil society into consultations build sturdier rules. Impact assessments and open workshops surface harms early. Companies should publish their approaches, invite feedback, and allow independent audits. Transparency builds trust faster than regulatory compliance alone. Next, the path forward and how adaptive. Collaborative regulation can unlock trust without killing innovation. The path forward is adaptive, collaborative, and competitive. Expect sandboxes, periodic reviews, sunset clauses, and international coordination on frontier risks. Regulators that fund safety science and lean on standards will reduce fragmentation. For companies, the payoff is clear. Prove safety and you'll ship faster and win trust. If you align governance with product strategy, regulation becomes an accelerator, not a brake. Now go build that evidence trail and stay ahead. If this helped you, like the video and subscribe for practical AI policy playbooks. Comment where your team is stuck and I'll cover it next.